Riot Games releases a video called State of Esports, and yes, of course we're going to talk about it. There's some stuff in there that's pretty good for esports fans, but there's also a lot missing. We'll get to that, but let's start with the positive. First things first, Arsh sums up everything pretty well here, that the Ink Shadow skins and event in-game is going to be the MSI event. Pretty much going forward now, there's going to be a skin line tied to international events. And whenever we buy skins, buy bundles, or buy literally anything related to them, it contributes to the esports prize pool of whatever event that might be. So to all the fans out there that have been saying, oh, the Dota 2 community gets their battle pass and whatever else they get for the international and we have nothing, we finally do have something here. And being honest, the skin line is pretty freaking cool. So the fact that we actually get that and that contributes directly to esports is great. You also get increased drops whenever players are using those skins in game. So that's a little weird. There's a little incentive to make sure that you're using and advertising the newest skins, but I mean, it's actually a really smart business when you think about it from Riot. So overall, a great change. The problem is when you title a video the State of Esports, I'm going to expect a lot more from than just a press release. Basically, this whole video was more or less an info dump. I mean, by all means, they mentioned about pairing with local students to try and give them a glimpse of esports, developing careers and futures into esports for a bunch of people, which all great things. But when you talk about the state of esports, we're talking about the ongoing situation right now, which is quite frankly doom and gloom for a lot of people and a real disconnect from the product itself. Now, this isn't Riot completely ignoring it. Why? Because we know that Travis Gaffer is going to be having an interview with Nas, the head of LoL Esports, I think next week or in the next few, sometime soon, maybe when she gets back from MSI as well. So I want to use this video to dive into 3 main questions that I have around LoL Esports and the direction that we're going forward, and things that quite frankly I think we need to see, or at least need addressed from Riot, to get a clear picture of, 1, where I can help direct the conversation, and 2, just what fans should expect. First and foremost, are there any plans to monetize regional leagues in-game? To put this into context, back in 2018, whenever Optic joined the LCS, your boy bought anything and everything there was to have with Optic. Back at that time, you could buy like the LCS Pass, which gave you an icon, it gave you a ward skin. Look, it wasn't much. There's never been much for regional teams unless you won Worlds, or in some cases with like the championship Kazakh skin, you could actually get like the Fnatic banner that like came down from his wings. Like that stuff was cool, but on a regional level, for the most part, you get nothing. And all of that has since gone away as Riot said, oh, you know, these weren't really driving money, but they drove a lot of value for fans, and we haven't seen them since. The Ink Shadow line, phenomenal, looks good. I'm glad it's contributing to the MSI prize pool. That's great. But if you have a team in the LCS that, okay, the world standard changed a little bit this year as we send 4 teams, but say they consistently finish 4th every single split, and they're competitive with the top teams, but they never qualify for MSI and Worlds, you have nothing in game to show for them, more or less. Like, there's nothing. Even if they're consistently up there, they're driving a ton of brand value, it just doesn't exist. There's no way for fans to engage in game with these brands in any capacity. So I'm not saying there needs to be a skin line, even though that would probably be desirable, but Riot has made it clear in the last interview with John Needham that there's just too many teams in the ecosystem for them to do that.
And we'll see where we land on that. I don't know if 8 is the right number of teams to have in the LCS, but I think generally we have too many teams around the world.
Okay. So what else are you going to do? What are you going to drive in terms of value for us fans outside of just the international events? Because the international events are only 2 months out of a 12-month year. So we need something to keep us more attached in games, to let us show our pride, our fandom, literally anything. I don't know what the deal is there. Second, and this is isolated to just the LCS, I would love to know from Nas, what is the goal long-term going forward with LCS in terms of priorities? Is it viewership, or is it monetizing your audience? Because if it's viewership, then it's been abundantly clear via comments that I'll also throw in the clip that John said that he wishes he had the original time zone on the weekday.
So the time slot, I don't think has been super impactful. I think if anything, maybe we should have been at 12 p.m. to get more European viewers for the LCS.
Sure. It's clear that they're trying to cater to international audiences and EU fans for a North American league and a North American product, where I honestly don't understand the value in that. I'm not saying you cut off EU fans, but I'm saying they should not be number one priority for a North American league. It should be NA fans, and if you are losing to some other product in North America, you need to find a way to beat it. If we're losing to Valorant, if we're losing to whatever other games are on the weekends, then we need to find a way to beat them and get NA fans into it and get them back watch. Like, I don't have the answer here. I just want to know Riot's direction, because it is abundantly clear that they just care about international audiences, even for your regional leagues, to which the question then gets begged, why do we have regional leagues then? Like, what value does the LCS have as a North American league if you are going to constantly sit here and say that we care about EU viewership? I get that viewership ultimately drives their sponsorship dollars, which is the only main source of revenue right now for them, because quite frankly, on weekdays they're not selling out an arena because you're having it at like 2 p.m. West Coast time in LA, where 75% of the population doesn't have access to LA, and you're also putting it during the time of which people have school and everything else. So what are the goals here? Because if filling up an arena is a priority, then you need to consider moving the LCS to Chicago, to New York, to the East Coast, in a time zone that is favorable for us on the weekend. But if online viewership is your only priority and you're still seeing diminishing viewership, how are you going to turn that around without suffering or sacrificing NA viewers? I just don't understand what direction we're going here. And the third question, and we'll never get an honest answer for this. I understand that this can't be an interview question because Nas will never answer it because it's kind of rude to ultimately give the final decision. But I would love to know how many teams in an ideal world would make up the LoL esports ecosystem to them. And I'm specifically talking about major regions and minor regions. So the combination, not EMEAs like, Masters program or like the tier 2, like exclude all the tier 2s. Just tier 1, teams that would qualify to Worlds and MSI. How many teams in an ideal world would you have in your ecosystem? Because clearly, as John pointed out, we have too many teams. And it looks like the future of LoL esports is some sort of reduction. And we're seeing shrinkage all around for LoL esports. But if they could do the Valorant format, if they could directly copy it, my question would be, would they? Would they be willing to pull the trigger on combining CBLOL and the LCS, on combining all of Europe and combining the Koreas and whatever, you could lump in Oceania with them or somebody, I don't know. You could lump in whatever 4 regions you want. But like, is there a clear goal to consolidate to that level? Because all of the decisions that we are seeing in the public eye hint towards Riot wanting to put a lot of love and nurturing towards the top side. Hence the Ink Shadow skin line, increasing the prize pool for teams there. You're seeing revenue share in most of the major regions that can do it. Prioritizing teams that go to Worlds is obviously a key focus, but like, if you're a 7th to 10th place team in the LCS, LEC, or anywhere else, there hasn't been much good news that you can sit here and be like, yeah, I'm looking forward to our future in the LCS. You either have to invest money to win, or even if you are trying and just ultimately failing and finishing in those slots, it just seems like there's nothing going for you. So without directly addressing that and kind of going around it, how many teams? Like 40? Like as of right now, there are 50 teams in just the major regions alone. 20 in China, 10 in Korea, 10 in the LEC, 10 in the LCS. That's not including CBLOL. That's not including any other region of the minor regions, including VCS, etc. If they had their choice, if you could knock it down to one number across all the major regions, what would that number be? And I'd love to have the discussion go further from there and just have it open-ended, but obviously we're never going to get that answered. So yeah, shorter video today and just something that I wanted to get off my mind, but this video wasn't really much of a state of esports. It was just a conversation around the Ink Shadow skin line and what that's doing for MSI and pairing with it. It kind of a misleading title, clickbait, sure, it got me, I'll admit it, but not the actual state of esports. That will have to apparently come from Travis Gafford whenever that video gets released. And you best believe I'll be talking about it when the time comes. So until the next video, which will likely be whenever MSI is officially out, see you next time.